Welcome to Orbicle Times podcast, and hello to everyone, whatever part of the globe you're from or happen to reside in. My name is Kelly Jo, and here we'll provide armchair conversations gathered from interviews and research reviews to explore the seen, the unseen, and the in-between of the supernatural paranormal phenomena, with topics that circle around spirit orbs, NDEs, OBEs, UFOs, time slips, mystical moments, higher consciousness, and more. I hope that this cast will be our meeting place and judge-free zone where we can explore, learn, and grow through the telling of. This cast will be launched on a monthly basis or a bi-weekly schedule whenever I'm able to make contact with those in the know for their telling of. Speaking of those in the know and the telling of, have you had mystical moments or other supernatural paranormal experiences? Care to share on this cast? Then consider stepping into the light with your telling of, or send in your monologue for me to read on this podcast. Simply email orbicleTimesPodcast@gmail.com for a chance to contribute to this cast. What do you think that orbs are?
I think they are consciousness of entities, loved ones, actually. And I've come to believe that their differences, and I believe that they represent kind of the personality or the emotions of the entity, who they are.
In this episode of Orbicle Times, Mr. Mike Nicholas shares his experiences about spirit orbs, which circles around his newfound belief that they, the orbs, guided him towards his spiritual path after the death of his son, Matt. From the use of IR cameras to the creation of his webpage, along with his soon-to-be published book, The Soul Unleashed, Mike and I had a lot to talk about. The saying, "What does not kill you makes you stronger," just might apply to Mike, or should I say, Titanium Mike. And so, without further ado, here is that interview. Thank you so much for setting aside some time for this chat, and welcome to this cast, Mike.
I'm happy to be here, Kelly Jo. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, so I just want to give the listener a bit of background about how Mike and I connected. So I reached out to Mike after seeing a few of his online videos at www.mikenicholas.com, which circled around orbs, and I mean spirit orbs. And to my delight, you, Mike, responded and agreed to this interview. And that is the arena in which we're going to be skating around in today, with the goal of uncovering a couple of things: where your explorations into orbs have led you, and not necessarily solely on orb explanation itself, unless that's where we're going to park it. But I hope to be doing somewhat of maybe a hat trick here, Mike. So hopefully we'll have the time to address transformations, which you may have encountered or are encountering. I guess what seems to me to be on your, I'm going to say, spiritual journey, but you can correct me later on about that. And perhaps the types of excavating tools that you had to acquire for such a spiritual navigation and investigation. If you'd like to begin with your telling of the orbs that you saw on your security camera, you're also invited to provide as much of a backstory as you feel is relevant and that you're comfortable giving. And so, Mike, without further ado, I'll finally hand the mic to you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah, you're welcome, Mike.
So I'm an older guy. I had plenty of time to do things throughout life. I grew up as a very conservative person. I was raised Catholic schools. Till college, I went to the military academy at West Point, started my military career there. So I've always been very structured, engineer, military officer, project manager, and all this stuff that we're discussing today has always been craziness to me. Anybody that talked about this, or mediums or spirits or tarot cards or astrology, I put that right up there with Chinese fortune cookies. And he passed on March 28th of 2020, at the start of COVID, and it was a very difficult passing for him. And we were devastated. My wife and I were crushed, waiting for a funeral, which happened later on in the year. But my wife said, "Why don't you go hit some golf balls?" I always did that with Matt. That was our son, and it was kind of a father-son thing. Went out to do that one day, May 17th, and I was crying so badly trying to do that I walked away. I just left all the balls there, went back home. It was very, very difficult just thinking of him and all the memories. My wife understood and all, and I said, "I have got a couple things I need to do I still had my project manager thing on and my hat on. And one of those was to put up some security cameras at the house. Little Amazon Blink cameras. They're about the size of a, uh, I don't know, cigarette lighter, for anybody knows what those look like. And put one outside the house and one inside the dining room looking at the sliding glass door we have out to the deck, and went to bed. And early in the morning of May 18th, it was 20 minutes past midnight, actually, the phone next to my head on the nightstand pinged. And I woke up. I didn't know what the sound meant because I'd never heard it before. And I just followed the default instructions for setting the camera up. But I looked at it and it said, "You have a motion alarm on your dining room camera." And I jumped out of bed, started throwing clothes on. I thought, holy mackerel, I just put these cameras in and already somebody's breaking in our back door.
Yeah.
And I started to rush downstairs, and I had the phone in my hand, and it appeared obvious to me that I was supposed to press this button on it. And I pressed the button, and it showed a 10-second video clip of what the camera had captured. And much to my shock and surprise, it showed a glowing orb, I guess about the size of a softball, which started right where our son would normally sit at the table when he was with us. And it was luminescent, and it blinked as it moved slowly across the room and then off to the left side of the camera. And I was stunned, shocked. I didn't know what to do. I knew right away instinctively that it was something from Matt trying to comfort me and let me know that he was okay, but I didn't know how to even express that feeling at the time. I woke up my wife, and we couldn't get back to sleep. We just kept watching it over and over again. And it happened again about 2 nights later, about the same time. Phone pinged, and it was another orb. This time, different direction. This went on for a couple of weeks. Every other second or third night, it would happen. The problem was that we were up every night waiting for it to happen because we were looking forward to it now. And so the nights it didn't happen, it would be 1 or 2 in the morning. We'd finally say, I guess we should, go to sleep. I was working. And so one night we were going to bed. It was about 9 or 10 o'clock. And I said, Matt, buddy, you need to knock this off. We need to we need to go to sleep. So if you wouldn't mind, please doing this before we go to bed, that would be kind of cool. I said it kind of jokingly. However, the orbs stopped. They didn't come anymore for about 2 weeks, and I was really distraught. I thought I had somehow angered God or angered spirits or angered Matt. I didn't know what to think. And what happened was I eventually discovered, Kelly, that I could look through my camera deliberately and actually turn it on. And I'm sure this appears obvious to anybody who has a security camera like you, dummy, but I didn't know. And I turned it on, and I could suddenly start seeing orbs if I looked for them. And that's where we were. And eventually got to the point where we understood that we could be in the room with them, looking at ourselves through the camera. They did some silly things like bounced off my head or bounced off my body. And sometimes I put my hand up, they'd give me a high five. Sometimes there'd be 10, 20, 30 in the room at the same time, just flying all over the place. As an engineer, it was important to me to study and test the orbs. I didn't just take them at face value that they were orbs. In fact, I didn't even know what to call it initially, but I experimented with them. First of all, I bought a bunch of different cameras, different types, and I tried different phones, and I continued to see the orbs. I sent the two cameras up side by side. I had the Ghost Stoppers one and the Sun Blink, and making motions with my hands so that would be easy to sync the two cameras afterwards. Anyway, nothing came up on the expensive camera. And I think it just uses a different type of light to see the orbs. I don't know why they didn't show up on the other camera.
Okay. So you're still using those cameras and they seem to be working for you?
Yes, they do. And we set them up in different rooms. Sometimes they just appear in different rooms. Initially, they were only in the dining room area where I initially saw them. And then one day I said, I wonder if they'd be where we have the urn with the ashes with our son, which was downstairs in another room. And I said, so we took it down there, set it up, and our routine was to pray first and invite the orbs to join us, and shocked the heck out of me when they came flying across the room. We saw two very clear, very bright orbs that first time we tried it in a different room.
And they also appear, as you have stated yourself too, on your website. And during our earlier chit chat, that you've seen them also outside of the home in other locations.
Yes.
Yeah.
We started, this is all part of the experimentation process, but in 2020, in late summer, we went to visit some friends in Alabama, and they're very religious people. That's been difficult, by the way, is trying to explain or talk to people about this, depending upon their religious background. But we were telling them, and they were very fascinated. And I said, "Well, let me show you the camera because you can look at it, online through your phone and see back at the house back in Virginia." And there was nothing. But about the time when they normally show up, 9, 10 o'clock, nothing. Room was completely clear. I said, "See, they're not there when we're not there." Um, but when we come back into the house, they are there. And then I thought, what would happen if I just took a camera with me? And I was actually on a motorcycle trip. I ride a motorcycle quite a bit. And I took a little camera with me, and I was in a Motel 6, someplace out in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Set it up in Motel 6. Orbs have no ego, by the way. They apparently they show up everywhere. They were there. And, I prayed and invited them, and they were all over this Motel 6 room. And we've since seen them in uh, other people's homes. We were in my brother's basement up in New Jersey, and we took the camera with us. And my wife Marianne and I, we saw the orbs there. I told my brother about it. He said, "Man, that's fascinating. That's unbelievable." And I showed him the video. I have like thousands of these videos.
Okay.
I showed him the video of his basement, which was basically a workout area, and orbs flying around. He said, "I can't believe it." And I said, "Now watch this. I want to do a test. You stay up here. Let's look at first. We'll look downstairs and we'll look through my phone." And we did. And there was no orbs. It was completely clear. I said, "You keep watching through the phone. I'm going to walk downstairs and see what happens." So I went downstairs in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely no air movement in this basement, because I was concerned about dust or whatever. No air movement. I went into the basement, and as I was feeling my way around to sit down on his workout bench, I heard him upstairs shouting, "Holy crap, holy crap." There they are. So they appeared as I couldn't see them, but they appeared around me, as I later saw on the video. And I did the reverse thing. I watched it when he went downstairs and they showed up. So they do respond to people. And I think I also told you about our house here. We spent a couple months in Florida in 2021 in January, and we had some neighbors that would come in and water our plants. And I mistakenly left one of the cameras on in the dining room where we normally saw the orbs. And one day we were in Florida, and the phone pinged, and I looked at it, and it showed orbs flying around our dining room. And I thought, oh man, there goes my whole theory about orbs only showing up when there's people.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wait a second. And I checked another camera, and sure enough, our neighbors had come in and they were watering the plants 15 feet away. Honestly, my first reaction was almost jealousy, like, hey, there are orbs, But I guess everybody has their own. I've come to believe everybody has their own orbs. You can see your own orbs, as you certainly know.
Mm-hmm.
So since then, that's happened with them. We have a couple ladies that come in and clean our house every once in a while. One time, again, I left the camera on accidentally, and it pinged, and I saw orbs around one of the cleaning ladies. I wasn't in the home, and oddly enough, the other lady did not have orbs around her, which was kind of weird, but just one lady did. So anyway, I do believe that we all can and do have this presence, this consciousness, whatever it is, with us, and they travel with us too.
What do you think that orbs are?
That's the $1 million question, right? I know you wonder the same thing. I think they are consciousness of entities, loved ones, actually. And I've come to believe that their differences, some are big, some are small, some are translucent, some are so bright you can't see through them. Some are huge, the size of a beach ball.
Yeah.
Some are little tiny like marbles. Some are fast, some are slow. And I believe that they represent kind of the personality or the emotions of the entity who they are. One time when we were having our son's funeral in October, it was at a hotel nearby here, and I had all my family and about 10 of my cousins in this conference room. We had rented a suite there, and I was showing them videos of the orbs, and I said, let's try and see if we can see anything. And set the camera up at the end of the conference table and turn out the lights. My cousins, God bless them, I love them, and they're all trying to look at my phone, and nothing was happening, nothing was going on. And my one cousin's husband, he's a big football fan of the Miami Dolphins, and my son was a big Washington Redskins fan, and they always joked with each other and went back and forth. And so my cousin's husband said, "Hey, Maddie, this year the Dolphins are going to take the Skins in the Super Bowl." And as soon as he said that, an orb came around his head,
Yeah.
right out of the curtain behind him, around his
Yeah.
head and down the table, and everybody gasped. And so I do believe that they are. Yeah, I believe my son's present all the time, a lot of times, but I do believe they are loving presences that we look forward to seeing them. But we get comfort from seeing them.
Do you think of them as supernatural or paranormal? And if so, was that topic up for discussion even between you and Matt, your son Matt, and or your other family members prior to Matt passing?
Well, the answer to the first question is yes. I've come to believe undoubtedly they are from a dimension, or they represent a dimension that we don't understand. It's beyond us.
Did you ever talk about paranormal issues? Was that sort of,
No.
your day to day? No?
Nope. That's why I'm so fascinated by your story. No, I'm the oldest of 7 children. All my siblings are all still around. We had a great family, great parents, great life growing up. But it was all very, at least for me, and my siblings never mentioned anything about this to me as far as having any kind of experiences or anything. Very not spiritual. My mother dabbled a couple times in seeing mediums after my father passed away, because for her that was a very difficult time. I think she was searching for the same thing that we started searching for after our son died. But no, I always thought it was, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus Christ, I'm a Christian, but I never considered any of this other stuff. And it was the catalyst, honestly, Kelly Joe. It's what caused me to, my whole life has flipped 180 from before my son died till short, months afterwards. That led us to see mediums. It led us to do a lot of things that I thought were crazy. Probably 8 or 10 different medium experiences that just blew me away. So I'm convinced more than ever that that all that can be real.
Do you feel that your son Matt is in some way directly, if you will, responsible for this journey that you're on?
Undoubtedly. That's exactly the way I believe it is. He's told me that through a medium, that his life purpose had been accomplished. He had chosen, and I believe all this now, he had chosen that was the time when he wanted to depart this life, but that the good that was to come from this was my awakening, my soul awakening, and not just personally for me, but my mission, if you will, to help other people who are left-brainers like I was, that saw all this as nonsense, to help other people come to the same sense of awakening. So undoubtedly, that was the purpose of his suffering and death. We all search for meaning when we're suffering from the death of a loss of a loved one, or what's the purpose of it. And I definitely, he's the one that told me to write the book. When I was talking to one of the mediums, he was describing through her other lives that he and I had lived together, which was blowing me away. And then she said, he wants you to write a book about this. And I said, about what? She said, about the changes that you're going through, and that you can reach people that other people cannot reach. That's why I got started on this journey. And that's exactly, what you just said is what we're doing.
Now, you mentioned that you were brought up Catholic and that you're a Christian. So I want to ask you, would you be comfortable going to, I guess it's a priest if you're still Catholic, whoever represents your faith, I guess, to discuss orbs? Would you do that with them?
It's funny you should ask. We didn't rehearse this, right?
No.
When that's the first place I went.
right? I didn't want to tell people about this. I was afraid that if I told people about it, that it would stop, first of all. For a friend of mine who's also Catholic, I talked to him and confided to him, and he said, look, if God is letting you see these things, that there's a purpose in this. If it's from God and you believe it's from God and it makes you feel better, then it's got to be a good thing. But maybe you should go talk to a priest. And I said, okay, great. He said, I got a great priest for you. His name is Father Paul. He works at Catholic University here in Washington, D.C. He lives in the Dominican House of Studies. He's a Dominican priest. I said, great. And this is right during the height of COVID, middle of 2020. But anyway, I sent him some videos, corresponded with him by email. He said, yeah, you can come see me. So I went down to Catholic University and we went in this gorgeous, ornate library. And I was looking for some meaning. Sat down with him and he said, I can't tell you what this is. I have no idea what this is, but here you might find the answers in this book. And he handed me the 2-inch thick book, the Catholic Catechism, much of which I had memorized, as a kid.
Yeah.
But he said you should look in there for answers. And so that was disappointing. And then there's 2 other priests that we know at Georgetown University, Jesuits, good friends of our family anyway. And we were up in New Jersey at the beach that summer, and we went for this long walk on the boardwalk, and my wife and I and these 2 priests, and they're both heads of departments at Georgetown. They're both very experienced, older priests. We came back to the house, and I showed them the videos, and they looked at them for a while, and they said, look, we can't tell you what this is or what it is or where it's from, but we know this great exorcist that we can have come to your house and clear your house for you. I said, no, thank you. That's not what we're looking for. We were grateful, but we love, this makes us feel good to see this. And when we ask our son to join us, he shows up like this. I'm not trying to have an exorcist come to my house. So that was the extent of my outreach to the church to help us out. Now I've done a lot of reading since then because I want to know how my whole view now of life, it differs very much from how I was raised. I mean, I believe in reincarnation. I believe in soul planning. I believe in manifestation. I believe in the fact that we have the power within ourselves to direct our own lives. It's all very different from, the victim mentality and God's an evil white man or an angry white man kind of thing that I grew up with.
Yeah. And just the fact that you thought that he was white all this time.
Well, Michelangelo did his thing. So, I always think of the Sistine Chapel. I grew up, if you were Catholic too, I grew up being taught that the only way to heaven is to not only believe in Jesus Christ, but to be Catholic. And my grandmother, God bless her, on my father's side was Protestant. And I just knew instinctively that if she couldn't get into heaven, she was one of the most loving women I knew, that there was something wrong,
Mm-hmm.
So, I've gone down that rabbit hole a number of times reading different books and trying to relate my current understanding of spirituality to Catholicism or Christianity. That's one of the major questions I ask people when I talk to them is how do you reconcile this vision of spirituality and that we come to earth many times and that we're spirits having a human experience
Exactly.
with Catholicism or with traditional religion, which holds that we live once, then we die, then we're judged. And I've come not to believe that.
So did you find that transition hard for you? And did it affect other relationships that you had with people that you knew that were Catholics or religious people?
Not yet. I've just recently come out of the closet, so
well, welcome.
I just retired a couple weeks ago, right? So I was in a job where it was better not to make those kind of waves or
right,
cause those kind of issues. But I have told a number of people about my podcast and the book that I'm writing, and a lot of things about that I've changed, and I've been really overwhelmed with the support from people saying, hey, I had the same kind of questions, or I wonder the same thing, or congratulations on, saying what you think. But I know there are many people who still love me and I love them, but they're friends that I know that are very much into the Bible, very strong Christians. Their lives are structured around that belief, and anything that is a threat to that or is contrary to that is met with skepticism. Love on my part, because I don't think they stop loving me, but you know, they're probably convinced I'm going to hell. So, but nothing that's been, you know, anything open or those kind of problems.
Yeah. Now let's circle back with something I was going to keep to the end of the cast, but you mentioned the book. Does your book have a working title, or?
It does. It's
Okay.
called. Hopefully, it'll be released here in a couple months. It's called The Soul Unleashed.
Okay.
And the point of that is my soul being unleashed, basically from the paradigms or the bonds that kind of kept me captured or held captive, I guess.
Being confined. Yeah.
Exactly.
And you're expecting that to be published in a few months.
Yes, and I originally wrote it describing the story about my son, and then going back to another medium. It's funny how our deceased loved ones or our loved ones in spirit still keep track of what's going on, right?
Yes.
Without me even asking, she started this medium started telling me that he doesn't want it to be about him. It's supposed to be about my transition, because it's my transition that will help other people, not his story. So his story is part of the book, but I've rewritten this now a couple times to focus on how I can help others that are similarly bound by the paradigm that they've built throughout their whole lives. So that's what the book has. A lot of stories about my life and what caused me to be like I am, but also it's about breaking out of those things.
While you've been writing the book, that been an easy process? Because I mean, sometimes for many people, writing is quite difficult, even if you happen to have a talent for it. Or have you found that? Do you feel like you have an angel on your shoulder, or a muse? Are the words coming and flowing pretty easy?
No, not for me.
Okay.
I wish, you know, so I've heard some people say, "Oh, I wrote a book in a weekend." No, I can get started writing and write a lot of stuff, but organizing it and making sure it's the right thing. If I suffer from anything, it's over analyzing, over critical. Plus, my perspective constantly enlarges. So I wrote the book initially and finished it last August, sent it off to an editor, got it back, and started working on the corrections and everything. And then my wife had her accident where she fell and hit her head, and she was in the hospital in the coma and everything. And that experience opened me up to even to greater things in terms of understanding our purpose in life and what her journey was. And anyway, that has caused me to even rewrite the book again based upon some of the things I've learned since her accident.
And when did this happen to your wife, her accident?
August 3rd last year.
August the 3rd.
Yeah.
And has she been in the hospital since then?
Yes. She was
Wow.
in a coma for 2 months.
Oh my.
And we had decided they have a nice term for it. It's called terminally wean her, which means take her off. She was on a ventilator and tracheostomy and feeding tubes and all these other tubes. And they were going to disconnect her from that with our permission. My son and I, my other son, we had met with the doctors, and they said, she's never going to wake up. She'll never be off of this. I knew she didn't want to live that way. She didn't want to exist that way. And so we had made the agreement with the doctors to do that process. Basically, me hold her hand. We did the same thing with my other son. That's exactly what happened with him. We took him off life support, and my wife and I held his hand when he passed. And so I knew what that was like. I was dreading doing it. I kept praying for some type of sign that I had made the right decision. And the doctor couldn't do it right away. He had to go on vacation for 4 or 5 days. And he said, I can have so-and-so do it for you today. And I said, no, I don't want you to do it, please. You've been working with us. I trust you. He said, I'll make sure she's comfortable, whatever. 2 days before he was back from vacation, I walked into the room and my wife was looking at me. She was awake.
Oh my.
And I stared at her dumbfounded, and I said, can you hear me? And she couldn't talk because of the trach and everything, and she just nodded. So she did not know who I was for almost another month. But within a couple weeks, she was off of everything. She got off the trach. She got off the ventilator first, then the tracheostomy later, and she's now trying to learn to walk again. But she's back mentally. She knows who I am and everything. But she hadn't moved in 7 or 8 months, so that's what she's gone through now is the physical therapy for that.
Wow, Mike. I mean, I'm sure the death of your son, to me, must be still raw because it hasn't been that long. And then to have that happen to your wife, I mean, wow, a lot of people would have went, sideways after those two events in their life. What was it what do you think it was that kept you strong?
I really do think that it is this, and this is why I would like to help other people suffering through grief, is I've really come to believe that I've got multiple opportunities in life, and that I've known my wife before, I've known my son before, I'll see them again. All this is just a blink of an eye in terms of eternity, and that we choose our life, and that my son chose to be here for this time. He chose when to exit. It was his decision. Nothing's by accident. And if my wife chose to do the same thing, then I love her, and I can't influence what she wants to do, but I had accepted that. I mean, I met with the funeral home. I bought the cemetery plot. I planned the thing with the church. I thought it was all going to happen. And when she woke up, it was kind of like, okay, she decided not to take that exit ramp. But that understanding, Kelly Jo, has really helped me. I guess you could say it's kind of understanding or seeing a bigger picture. There's a reason for the suffering. There's a reason for my son's death. There would have been a reason for my wife's passing. I think there's a reason why she's gone through now what she's gone through. And that larger perspective really helped me.
What was it, Mike, that brought you to that perspective? I mean, aside from the events, and had you thinking that way? Had you thinking that I met this person before, I think I've met him before, maybe we're all from the same tribe, this is the way. Where did that come from?
That's a great question, because I didn't really mention that. But I started reading books. As soon as I saw the orbs, I wondered what the orbs were. So I went to the web, to the web, of course, the internet.
Yeah.
Found other people that knew about orbs. And once it became clear to me that they were paranormal or beyond this reality, I started looking for books that dealt with people who had lost children. And there's, I can't remember the names of the books right now. I'd be happy to provide it to you. But there's a couple books in particular that I read where a man had lost his son. I think it's called My Search for Christopher on the Other Side. And there's other books. And through reading these books, the guy was meditating a lot. He was communicating with his son. He was meeting a bunch of mediums. And I started taking notes, the names of the mediums he was talking to and seeing that were providing comfort to him. And I started meditating. I'd never meditated before. And that led me to considering a medium. So first medium that my wife and I went to was in September of 2020. And some amazing things happened there. She saw us in person. Most mediums at that point were seeing you remotely. And convinced me even further that Matt was still around. He was still with us. At one point during that session, we're sitting there with this lady, and I didn't know what to expect with a medium, honestly. I didn't know whether there was chicken droppings and blood or whatever. I didn't know.
Yeah.
But she was very nice.
Swinging a chicken around her head, yeah.
She was great. And at one point she said, can you hear your son? And to both of us, or to Marianne, my wife, and she said, no. And she goes, he's pointing to his ears. And she said to me, can you hear your son? I said, no. He said, for some reason, he keeps pointing to his ears and then pointing to his mother. And I said, I have no idea what it is. And generally with mediums, if they bring up something and you can't validate it, right, you just kind of move on, or they'll come back later or whatever. And right as we were about to move on, I said, wait a second. She just got hearing aids, my wife. And like 2 days before she never had hearing aids before, and you couldn't see them with her hair and everything, and these little tiny things she had on. And so the medium starts saying, that's it. Matt's jumping up and down. So he's able to, she said the point was that he was trying to make is that he's still with us. He's still participating in our lives. He still knows what's going on. And
Right.
subsequent mediums there have been other things that we're doing that he has commented or just let us know that he knows what's going on. So that's been amazing.
That does sound amazing. Yeah, it sounds like he was, or she was letting you know that he was saying.
Started listening to, have you heard of Abraham Hicks?
Yes.
Okay, so and then the Seth material, the Seth books.
Yes.
So I've read almost all that. Got the videos and the audiobooks, and that led me to Gabriella Bernstein, who is big about manifesting, and that led me to Mike Dooley. And I've read 3 or 4 of Mike Dooley's books and attended some of his courses. For me, Mike Dooley explains it most clearly. It's all the same. Everybody's saying the same thing, but that has helped shape my understanding and belief in what's going on.
I'm going to assume, but I shouldn't, that the first person that you told about seeing the orbs was your wife, correct?
Sure, yes.
Yeah. And was she open to that right away?
Right away. Yep. She never got into it as much as I did. Like, when I was testing it and trying different cameras,
sure. Yeah.
He's like, all right already, whatever. But by the way, I don't think I told you this, but I took the camera into the hospital last night.
Well, no, you didn't tell me. Although, yes, when we were chatting the other day, you did mention that it was something that you were thinking of.
Yeah, I took it in and they were there. So now what made me think about this is because my wife, she suffered a stroke too as part of the fall. So she, she's still not, and probably will never be the way she was, but so her attention span is somewhat limited. So after about 15 seconds of looking at the camera, she was talking about something else. And so we looked for the orbs, and I saw probably 4 or 5 of them. And I had somebody else look at them also just to make sure that I wasn't seeing things and confirm that. Now, they're not as cool as the ones that you see. These are still...
They probably are.
Well, they're still, because it's IR light, right? They're still ghostly and kind of translucent. And but in a hospital, it's a little harder to do this because we had to close the door and turn out the lights.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's constantly people coming. Nobody interrupted us, but I kept thinking somebody's going to come in the room and like, what the heck are you guys doing? And then the other thing, Kelly Jo, I want to tell you was I tried what you asked me to try using my cell phone.
Yeah, with the flashlight.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah, pretty sure that it would for you. Absolutely.
Now, they weren't as pretty again as yours, and maybe they'll get better. I kept asking for them to be in color, but they were still white. But they were, they're definitely orbs, and they were just showing up without IR light. I couldn't see them with my eyes, but I could see them through the phone.
Yeah, and so you should be able to obviously capture video with the light on, with the flash going.
I did.
Yeah, and just keep it up. I think a lot of people, what happens, well, people have time constraints, but it's the interest, it's the patience, and you got to wait for them to, tell their tribe, like, hey guys, like, here's what's happening over at this house. Here's what he has now. And that sounds, it's sort of tongue in cheek, but not really.
It's
just
funny.
keep asking.
Just say that because that's been exactly my experience with, like, for the hospital, for example. If I was to go back tonight and do the same thing, there would be more orbs and more the next night. And I've noticed that when we stayed at places or I'm in another hotel, there's more subsequent nights. So, I don't know, maybe they passed the word or whatever.
That's what I'm saying. From orb to orb, they
Instagram. I don't know what they use.
Some of them are show-offs. So, do you have any pets? And if so, have you noticed that they've seen them?
No, I did post one video on my website from New Year's Eve at my son's house. I was dog sitting. Basically, they have a dog, Australian something or other, and I think he's as dense as a rock. Fortunately, he's not the smartest dog I've ever met, but he didn't see anything.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there were hundreds around us.
I know cats are pretty good at doing that. And Molly the dog here, she has caught a couple. You know, Molly's old. She's like 16 now. She basically almost, I would say, had an NDE of her own. And when she came back to us, we started feeding her just homemade food. So we cook her up liver and sweet potatoes and all of those good stuff. And she loves that. I mean, she really loves that. One day when I let her in, she was prepared and waiting for that food. She was very anxious, and something flew by. Something flew by the camera. I was just taking a picture because I thought it was funny the way she was behaving. Anyway, something flew by the camera, and when I looked at it later, I saw that she saw it, and she was mad at it. That she could see what it was before I knew it was there. I think that animals that they can't see. Maybe not all of them, just like people, have that ability. So, especially
I have
cats.
some friends who have purchased the exact same type of camera that I have,
Yeah.
with the intent or hope of seeing orbs also, and they have not seen any. And so I don't know what it is that, it's not just the camera, obviously. It has something to do with your belief, I guess.
I remember asking somebody, so why do you think they're around? And they said, oh, it's probably because they sense that people need them at certain times. Go
For
ahead.
me, this is not about the orbs. The orbs are kind of the sexy thing, I guess, that brings people or attracts people, and which is great and terrific. But for me, the orbs, I think, were kind of the slap across the face to wake up. And I wouldn't have been convinced without the orbs. So I think that was my son involved in that, waking me up. Here's proof. I'm the type of person that needs more than the Bible, I guess, or needs more than my faith. I guess I'm ashamed to even say that, but I believed in heaven. I believed in God and all that, but I never would have believed this other stuff or had this other understanding without this process I've been going through. What I hope to be able to do is help people that come from the same type of mindset that I was at. Engineers, military folks, scientists, all these left brain folks that need more than just, they need something, they need proof almost that there's something else going on. And many people I've come across that are left brain types like I was want to know something. They feel there's something else. And so my mission that I'm kind of accepting is trying to help those kind of folks come to appreciation and realization of what's going on, and also help people that are trying to deal with grief, because it has helped me so much with my son and preparing for my wife that I think it can really help somebody that's suffering with the loss of a loved one, especially through things like suicide, helping people deal with those kind of issues.
Yes. And how old was your son when
36.
he passed away? And you have another boy. Is that
I have
correct?
another son who's early 40s. Don't test me. 42, okay. I think. And with two lovely grandchildren. And can I tell you that story real quick with the grandkids and the orbs?
Yeah, please do.
Just real quick. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think, and I was telling you earlier, that the orbs kind of reflect personalities, right? So the kids, they're young. At this point, they were like 10 and 7. They saw the camera in the bedroom, which we were using to see the orbs, and they wanted to perform for it. And so they knew that I could see them on it. So they had turn it on. So they ran upstairs, they're bouncing around the bed and everything. And they came back downstairs and they wanted to see themselves. And I showed them. And as I was showing it to them, the orbs showed up around them. This is during the daytime. So this is like, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
But the IR light was on. So even in the daytime, IR could pick it up. These orbs reflected the personalities of the enthusiasm, the exuberance of the kids. And they were doing circles and loops and darting around the room. And it just occurred to me that the orbs were as happy as the children were. And that's why I've really come to believe that the orbs are entities of some type, consciousness of some type, but they have their own personalities.
Sure. And they picked up on that, the energy, yep. The vibrations that they were giving off, if you will, the good vibrations. And speaking of your children jumping up and down, that kind of led to this same place I'm going to go with you in our conversation yesterday, and that was about orbs and music. So don't forget to, I know you said that you play guitar, and try that out. Whether it's your songs, you on the guitar, you playing with music, or if it happens to be meditation sounds, or, well, that's interesting, because somebody reached out to me who is a medium, who has their own podcast, and said, I think that in your home, these orbs are benevolent, but she felt that there was, I forget how she phrased it, sort of one, if you will, go-to guy, like one leader, one entity that sort of like that was his posse.
Really?
It sounds funny, but you know what? I'll leave it at that, because this isn't about me. So I'll wait for that for another time.
I'll definitely ask you that if you'll do my podcast, because I'd love to know. I have a lot of questions I want to ask you. So
I hope I'll be able to answer them when we get there. And I am looking forward to speaking with you as well, Mike. Mike, do you want to share any sort of words of wisdom, or perhaps some, I don't know, provide a takeaway message for my listener?
I'm happy and excited about life despite everything that's going on, and it's because of this new spiritual outlook that I had. If I had stayed in the paradigm that I was living in, I would have believed that God was angry, or that we were suffering. Why does God answer some prayers and not others? But now I believe that we're all creators of our own life. I believe in, we call it, we meaning the people that kind of teach this stuff, infinite possibilities. And I believe in that. And so I'm excited. Every day I wake up, I set my intention for the day, and I've been just very happy with the way things are, even despite, the challenges with my wife. I'm happy about life and happy about where I'm going. So
that's wonderful, Mike. Yeah. That's wonderful. Well, on that note, I want to say that it was such an honor to have spoken with you, Mike. I do wish you and your wife, do I have that right, Marianne?
Marianne.
Marianne, I do wish you all the best. So lots of love and light to you. And yes, and I do believe that they will be back. Those orbs will be back. And
thank you, Kelly.
Thank you for allowing us to connect, in, I think, in more ways than one. And it's always nice for me to speak to what I call a fellow orbologist.
I can't believe you found me, and that there's somebody else that has orbs that are video wise. It's hard to find somebody with videotape, video of orbs. I see a lot of pictures.
Well,
video is cool.
It is interesting that you just said that, because that was my next thought that I was going to bring forward. And, serendipity. Would you like to give some information about your social platforms where people can view your videos, or perhaps contact you, whether that's your webpage or your channel? And also repeat again the name of your book that you've penned that's going to be released soon. Please go ahead.
That's very, very kind of you. My website's pretty simple. It's just MikeNicholas.com. NICHOLAS is my last name. It's just HTTPS MikeNicholas.com. And that's where information about my book will be once I get it released. It's going to be called The Soul Unleashed. And hopefully it'll be in the spring. And there's a contact form on my website. I think that's what you used, isn't it?
I think it was, yeah.
Or just Mike at MikeNicholas.com. Pretty simple. I'm not a social medium.
You might be a medium.
So
maybe that's
medium.
Maybe that's to come.
Maven just yet. I'm still working on understanding all that stuff. But yeah, I just have the website. So thank you.
So I am glad that I found you, and I'm glad that you took it upon yourself to read what I had said and to reach back out and connect. And that's always a good thing.
All right. Look forward to having you on my podcast, Kelly Jo.
Absolutely. Just throw me the information. Let me know the time and dates, and I'll be right there.
Okay, great.
Okay. Take good care.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I would like to keep this cast a commercial-free zone. In light of that, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channels. All my orb videos are available by using the handle @SpiritOrbSightings, or visit my new channel with the handle @Orbicle Times Podcast. If you've already subscribed, many thanks. For blogs, episodes, show notes, bios, images, and video, please visit www.orbicletimes.com. If you enjoyed an episode, then please give a like or a share on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, or whatever podcatcher you happen to use. If you've already done so, much appreciated. Thank you for taking your time to visit these Orbicle Times. Orbicle Times podcast is written, produced, edited, and hosted by me, Kelly Jo, at Studio Spare Room.